Picture yourself in a medieval village, the air thick with the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, as you wonder how anyone found love in a world of muddy boots and arranged marriages. Forget the candlelit dinners and dating apps of today. In the Middle Ages, romance was a battlefield of practicality where hearts were bartered like sacks of grain. You're not swiping right or crafting flirty texts. You're dodging plagues, dowries, and nosy chaperones who'd sooner report you to the priest than let you steal a glance at the miller's daughter. It's a time when love was less about butterflies and more about who owned the healthiest cow or the least leaky roof. Welcome to dating in the 1300s, where the stakes were high, the humour was dry, and the idea of playing the field meant negotiating livestock with your future in-laws. Now settle in dim, the lights maybe crack a window for that soft evening breeze, and let's dive into a world where courtship was as awkward as a 2 a.m. text, but twice as complicated. If you're enjoying this journey, give a nod to the stars above and maybe tell me where you're listening from or what time it is. Are you tucked in bed at midnight or sipping tea at dawn? Either way, you're here, and that's what counts. In this village, you're not just a bystander, you're living it, feeling the scratch of wool against your skin, hearing the distant clang of a church bell. Love wasn't a fairy tale. It was a transaction wrapped in hope with a side of stubborn human spirit. You think modern dating's tough? Try wooing someone when your best move is complimenting their turnip harvest. The Middle Ages weren't exactly a hotbed of romantic freedom. You're not strolling through a market locking eyes with a stranger and planning a moonlit walk. Nope. Your parents, your lord, or maybe a meddling abbot have already got your future spouse picked out, probably before you could even grow a proper beard. Love. That's a luxury, like a warm bath or a day without fleas. The goal was survival and alliances and enough goats to keep the family fed. For nobles, betrothals were sealed in childhood, tying your fate to a stranger's for the sake of a fiefdom or a fancy title. Peasants had a bit more wiggle room, but only just your family still needed to approve, and they'd be eyeing the other side's pig pen like it was a dowry jackpot. Yet despite the cold calculations, people dreamed. You catch a glimpse of someone at the well balancing a bucket with a sly smile, and your heart does a little jig. Maybe you scribble a verse on a scrap of cloth or sneak a carved spoon into their basket. Romance wasn't dead, it was just buried under layers of practicality like a seed waiting for spring. Humans then as now were stubborn about joy. They sang, they flirted, they defied the odds, even if it meant risking a scandal or a stern lecture from the village priest. So as you drift into this tale, imagine yourself there navigating a world where love was a gamble, but one worth taking, ready for more. The next part's coming, and it's got all the gritty details of how marriages were made. Stay tuned and keep those stars in sight. You're back in the medieval village, the air buzzing with the low hum of gossip and the clatter of cartwheels on cobblestone. You've got your eye on someone, maybe it's the way they swing a scythe, or the glint in their eye when they barter at the market. But before you start dreaming of stolen kisses by the haystack, let's get one thing straight in the Middle Ages. Your love life isn't yours to steer. It's in the hands of your parents, your lord, or some cranky uncle who's got a grudge and a ledger. Arranged marriages and betrothals were the name of the game, and they were about as romantic as a tax audit. Buckle up, because you're about to learn how your future was decided over a tankard of ale and a handshake that smelled faintly of sheep. If you're a noble, your fate was probably sealed before you could say chainmail. Picture yourself as a kid, barely tall enough to reach the banquet table, when your parents betroth you to some distant lord's daughter. You won't meet her until the wedding day, and when you do, it's less love at first sight and more hope. She doesn't hate my face. The deal's about land titles and keeping the family name shiny. Think of it as a medieval merger with you as the fine print. You're not picking a soulmate, you're securing a dynasty. The ceremony's grand, sure, with trumpets and velvet, but it's also a contract signed in front of a priest who's muttering Latin like he's got somewhere better to be. You nod, you smile, and you pray your new spouse doesn't snore like a boar. For peasants, things were a touch less formal, but don't get too excited. You're still not running off into the sunset. The family's got a say, and they're not swooning over your crush's dreamy eyes. They're counting her family's chickens. You might fancy the baker's son, but if his dad's got no land and a reputation for burning bread, your parents are already eyeing the miller's kid who's got a decent goat and a roof that doesn't drip. Courtship's less about candlelight and more about proving you're a good investment. You show up with a sturdy plough or a sack of barley, and if the families agree, you're practically engaged. The good news, you might get a say, maybe even a quick chat by the well to see if you can stand each other. The bad news, love's a bonus, not the goal survival is. Still, there's a spark of humanity in all this. You're human after all, and humans are messy. Maybe you sneak a glance at your betrothed during the village feast, noticing the way they laugh at a bad joke. Maybe you slip them a wildflower tucked into a loaf of bread and they blush. These moments, fleeting as they are, keep the heart beating. The system's rigid, but people bend it where they can, whispered promises, stolen glances. A quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, you'll grow to love the person you're stuck with. As you drift through this tale, imagine the weight of those expectations, the itch of wool, the flicker of a hearth. Up next, we'll dive into the gritty world of peasant courtship, where romance means splitting firewood together. Keep listening, and let the night carry you. You're trudging through a medieval village, mud squelching under your worn boots, the air sharp with the tang of livestock and fresh-baked bread. You've got a spark for someone, maybe the weaver's daughter, who's got a quick laugh and a knack for untangling wool. But this isn't a world of moonlit serenades or sneaky texts. You're a peasant, and courtship here is as romantic as a turnip stew, practical, gritty, and tied to survival. Your heart might skip a beat, but your head's busy calculating whether her family's got enough chickens to make a match worthwhile. Welcome to the rough-and-tumble reality of peasant romance, where love's a luxury and a good harvest is the real dream. As you settle into this tale, maybe with a fan humming softly, or the night air drifting through your window, imagine yourself in the thick of it, your hands calloused from ploughing your tunic patched from last year's mishaps. If you're vibing with this, give a shout in your head to the village well, where gossip flows faster than water. Tell me, where are you tuning in from? Is it late with crickets chirping, or early with coffee steaming? Either way, you're here, living this medieval grind. Courtship for folks like you isn't about grand gestures, it's about proving you can pull your weight. You're not wooing with roses, you're showing up with a sturdy rake or a basket of eggs that says, "I'm not a total disaster." Your family's got their eyes peeled, sizing up your crush's kin. They're not fussed about your fluttering heart. They want a dowry, even if it's just a scrawny goat or a pile of lumpy blankets. You might get a chance to chat while hauling water or mending a fence, but don't expect privacy. Your nosy cousins lurking ready to tattle if you linger too long. Still, there's charm in the simplicity. You notice how she handles a sickle with confidence, or how he doesn't flinch when a pig charges. You swap small gifts, a carved wooden peg, a handful of wild berries, and it feels like a secret even if the whole village knows. The goal's a partnership, someone to share the back-breaking days and the long winters, maybe even a laugh when the roof leaks again. But don't mistake it for cold calculation. There's warmth here, stubborn and human. You catch her eye across the market, and for a moment the world's just you two, not the cows or the dowry. You dream of a shared hearth, even if it's just a smoky hut with a lumpy straw bed. Peasants didn't have time for poetry, but they had heart enough to build a life from scraps. As you drift through this story, feel the weight of a pitchfork, the chill of dawn. Next up, we'll see how nobles turned marriage into a high-stakes chess game. Keep those stars in view and let's keep going. You're standing in a drafty stone castle, the walls echoing with the clink of goblets and the low murmur of scheming lords. The scent of roasted venison and beeswax candles fills the air, but romance that's as rare as a sunny day in February. You're a noble, and your marriage isn't about love, it's a transaction, a deal brokered over parchment and power. Forget soulmates. You're here to secure borders, boost your family's clout, or snag a juicy estate. Your heart might yearn for the bard's daughter with her sly grin and lute-strumming fingers, but your future's already been sold to a stranger for a few acres and a fancy title. Welcome to the cutthroat world of noble marriages, where vows are contracts and love's just a footnote. Picture yourself wrapped in velvet, the weight of a gold chain pressing against your chest as you navigate this high-stakes game. If you're into this vibe, give a mental nod to the flickering torches, and maybe let me know where you're chilling, curled up at midnight or sneaking a listen during lunch. The medieval elite didn't mess around with courtship. Your betrothal was likely set when you were still tripping over your own feet, tying you to some duke's heir you've never met. The deal's about land alliances or settling an old feud. Your feelings are as relevant as last week's feast scraps. Your parents haggle over dowries like they're at a market stall trading Field's coin or even a castle or two. You're not a person. You're a walking treaty, and the wedding's just the ink drying. On the big day, you're decked out in silks, paraded before a crowd of vassals and a priest who's more interested in the wine than your vows. You meet your spouse, maybe they're kind, maybe they've got a stare colder than a dungeon wall. Either way, you're bound for life, or at least until someone pulls off a sneaky annulment. The contract's ironclad, Her dowry bolsters your coffers, your title elevates her kin, and everyone's happy except maybe you. But here's the kicker. Even in this world of cold deals, there's a flicker of defiance. You might slip a glance at a knight across the hall, or pen a secret verse about someone who isn't your betrothed. Nobles were human after all, and humans sneak hope into the cracks of even the stoniest plans. As you sink into this tale, feel the chill of the castle floor, the rustle of parchment sealing your fate. Up next, we'll dive into the wild poetic chaos of courtly love where knights pine and ladies play hard to get. Keep your eyes on the horizon, and let's roll on. You're astride a horse in a sun-dappled courtyard, your armour clanking like a sack of coins, the air rich with the scent of polished leather and blooming roses. You're a knight all shiny bravado and questionable poetry skills, and your heart's been snagged by a noble lady who's as untouchable as the stars. Forget modern dating apps or casual coffee dates. This is courtly love, a bizarre medieval mix of longing, performance art, and self-inflicted misery. You're not here to win her hand. You're here to pine elegantly scribbling verses about her smile, while dodging actual romance like it's a lance at a joust. Welcome to a world where love's a game and the rules are gloriously absurd. Settle in, maybe fluff a pillow, or let the hum of a fan pull you deeper into this tale. If you're feeling the vibe, give a mental salute to the castle banners flapping above and let me know where you're at. Is it midnight with the world quiet, or midday with life buzzing around you? You're a knight now, sworn to adore a lady, probably married, because that's the medieval kicker from a safe tortured distance. You pen odes to her silver laugh or her hair, which burns like the sun translation she's got hair and hasn't insulted your family. You wear her colours at tournaments, a scrap of blue silk tied to your helm, and you sigh dramatically enough to make the squires roll their eyes. Your job, suffer nobly, joust recklessly, and never ever expect a date. The lady's role is just as wild. She's got to act flattered but icy like a glacier with better manners. Maybe she tosses you a ribbon or a cryptic nod from across the hall, but anything more like a real conversation risks scandal. Courtly love's a dance of longing without payoff, a medieval soap opera, where everyone's in on the act. It's impractical, sure, but it's also a release valve. Knights get to flex their feelings, ladies get to wield power, and the whole castle gets a break from plotting wars. Yet there's a spark of truth in it. You're human, and even in this choreographed chaos your heart races when she glances your way. You dream of a world where love's not a pageant, but for now you'll take the poetry and the pain. As you drift through this story, feel the weight of your sword, the heat of the tawny field. Next up, we'll explore the risky art of tokens, those little gifts that say, I love you without landing you in a dungeon. Keep the candles lit and let's ride on. You're weaving through a bustling medieval market, the air thick with the aroma of fresh bread, sour ale, and sweaty crowds. Your heart's thumping for someone, maybe a merchant's son with a crooked grin, or a lady whose laugh cuts through the chatter like a bell. But in this world, you can't just slide into their DMs or send a flirty emoji. Instead, you clutch a small risky gift, a carved spoon, a ribbon, maybe a glove scented with lavender. These are tokens the Middle Ages version of a love note, and they're as subtle as a whisper, but as bold as a battle cry. One wrong move, and you're the talk of the village or worse, explaining yourself to a priest. Get comfy, maybe crack a window for that cool night breeze, or let the soft glow of a lamp pull you in. If this tale's got you hooked, give a nod to the market stalls piled with apples and cloth, and tell me where you're tuning in. Is it late with stars peeking out or early with dawn just breaking? Tokens are your way to say I'm into you when words are dangerous. If you're a knight, you might send Lady Marjorie a sleeve from your tunic. Yes, an actual sleeve, because nothing screams devotion like dismantling your wardrobe. She gets it, pins it to her cloak, and suddenly everyone's whispering. If you're a peasant, it's simpler, a whittled peg or a handkerchief you stitched while your goats judged you. Either way, it's a gamble too bold and it's scandal. Too vague and they think you're just being nice. These tokens carry weight like a secret you can hold in your hand. You slip a ribbon into her basket at the well and her fingers brush yours, electric forbidden, gone in a heartbeat. But here's the catch, everyone's watching. Give the wrong token to the wrong person and you're dodging rumours faster than a runaway cart. A glove on your sword hilt says you're smitten, but deny it, and you're just honouring a friend. Plausible deniability is the name of the game. Still, there's magic in these gestures. In a world of contracts and chaperones, a tiny gift feels like rebellion proof that your heart's still yours to give. As you sink into this story, taste the dust of the market, hear the creak of carts. Next, we'll dive into the suffocating world of chaperoned dates where love's under lock and key. Keep the fire burning and let's keep going. You're strolling through a medieval hamlet, the air buzzing with the low drone of bees and the sharp tang of freshly churned butter. Your heart's doing cartwheels for someone, maybe the blacksmith's apprentice, whose hands are steady as he hammers iron. But before you start picturing a cosy chat by the river, brace yourself in the Middle Ages. Romance is less a dance and more a heavily guarded convoy. You're never alone, not really. Your every move is watched by a gaggle of chaperones, your mother a priest, or that cousin who'd sell you out for a loaf of bread. Welcome to chaperoned interactions, where love's under surveillance and sneaking a smile feels like pulling off a heist. Settle in, maybe prop up a pillow, or let the soft whir of a fan ease you into this world. If you're vibing, give a mental wink to the village gossips leaning over their fences and let me know where you're at. Is it late with the night wrapping around you, or midday with the sun high? You're a young dreamer here itching to talk to your crush, but the medieval world's got you on a leash. If you're a lass fetching water, your aunt's trailing you, judging your posture and muttering about virtue. Want to chat with that apprentice? Good luck, his father's sharpening a blade nearby and the priest just happens to be passing through for the third time today. It's not dating, it's espionage and you're no master spy. The logic's simple: protect honour save face, and keep your hands where everyone can see them. Chaperones are your personal border patrol, ensuring no unsanctioned glances or, heaven forbid, hand brushing. Group outings supervised. A walk to the market monitored. Sitting on a bench. Only if someone's grandmother is knitting nearby, ears perked like a hawk. The church piles on too, with sermons about temptation and tomes on why flirting's basically a sin. Yet in this suffocating setup you find ways to rebel. You catch his eye while passing a bucket, and it's like the world holds its breath. You hum a tune hoping she notices, and her shy grin's worth more than gold. Humans are stubborn like that, chaperones or not, you'll steal a moment. As you sink into this tale, feel the itch of wool, the weight of watchful eyes. Next we'll slip into the dangerous thrill of secret love letters. Keep the hearth glowing and let's sneak on. You're hunched in a dim corner of a medieval tavern, the air heavy with the scent of stale ale and flickering tallow candles. Your pulse races as you think of her, the baker's daughter, whose laugh is brighter than the morning. But in this world you can't just whisper your feelings over a pint. Words are dangerous, and love's a crime if it's not church approved. So you turn to the riskiest move of all, a secret love letter, a scrap of parchment that's half confession, half rebellion. It's the medieval equivalent of a late-night text, but one wrong delivery could land you in a confessional or worse. Welcome to the high-stakes game of forbidden words, where your heart's on the line and the ink's barely dry. Get cosy, maybe let the night's quiet or a soft hum pull you deeper into this story. If you're feeling it, tip your hat to the tavern's creaky beams and tell me where you're tuning in. Is it dusk with shadows stretching, or dawn with the world waking? You're no scholar, but you've scratched out a letter, your quill trembling as you write. You can't say I love you outright, that's too blunt, too dangerous. Instead you weave poetry. My soul is a hawk soaring on the breeze of your grace. It's cryptic, flowery, and just vague enough to dodge a heresy charge. You dust it with crushed petals, hoping the scent lingers, and pray you didn't accidentally wrap it around a fish like that one noble, who's now married to the wrong lass. Delivery's the real trick. You can't hand it over yourself. Chaperones are everywhere, and her confessor's got a nose for trouble, so you bribe a giggling stable boy or sweet-talker minstrel to sing it as a random verse in the square. Every step's a gamble. Monks might intercept it, sniffing out sin, or her father might find it and start sharpening his axe. But when it works, when she reads it and her eyes light up across the market, it's like you've stolen the moon. These letters, rare and reckless, are proof that love can slip through the cracks of a rigid world. In a society of rules, a folded note is a revolution. As you drift through this tale, taste the wax sealing your secrets, hear the tavern's low hum. Next, we'll hit the chaotic joy of festival flirting. Keep your courage up and let's press on. You're swept into the heart of a medieval festival, the air alive with the twang of lutes, the sizzle of roasting meat, and the sweet tang of spilled ale. For once, the village isn't just mud and toil, it's a riot of colour, with ribbons fluttering and someone in a flower crown strutting like they own the place. Your heart's thumping for the tailor's son, whose grin could outshine the sun. In the Middle Ages, this is as close as you get to a dating app, a rare moment when you can flirt, laugh, and maybe make eye contact without a priest glaring you into next Sunday. Welcome to the chaotic, chaperoned joy of festival romance, where love sneaks through the cracks of a watchful crowd. Get comfy, maybe let a breeze drift through, or the soft hum of night pull you in. If you're loving this, give a nod to the juggler tossing stale bread rolls, and let me know where you're at. Is it late stars winking above or midday with life buzzing? Festivals, harvest dances, maypole twirls, or your shot to mingle? The rules loosen just a smidge. You're not alone, mind you. Your mother's eyeing you from the ale tent and the village busybodies taking notes. But there's music, and that's your cover. You join a dance, your hand grazing his for a heartbeat during a spin, and it's electric like you've cheated fate. Or you try impressing her by wrestling a greased pig landing in the dirt with a grin that says, "I meant to do that." Nobles play it fancier. You might be a lord's daughters dodging suitors while a knight recites a poem comparing your eyes to twin candles in a storm. You smile, toss him a ribbon, and keep it cool too much warmth, and it's a scandal. For peasants it's earthier, you share a honey cake, and if she doesn't feed it to her dog you're golden. Every move's public, though a flirty laugh and the bard's already weaving it into his next song. Still, for a few hours you pretend love's not a contract. You dance, you jest, you dream of a world where a glance doesn't need a dowry. As you sink into this tale, feel the rhythm of the drum, the warmth of the bonfire. Next, we'll explore the quiet charm of peasant courtship. Keep the festival's glow and let's roll on. You're knee-deep in a medieval field, the air thick with the scent of cut hay and distant wood smoke, your hands rough from hauling barley. You've got a soft spot for the shepherd's lass who's got a steady hand with the flock and a smile that makes the dawn feel warmer. But this isn't a world for grand gestures or love songs. You're a peasant and courtship's as plain as the dirt under your nails, built on shared chores, small gifts and the hope you'll both survive winter. Forget poetry. Your romance is proving you can mend a fence or gut a fish without whining. Welcome to peasant courtship, where love's simple, stubborn, and smells faintly of goats. Settle in maybe with a blanket tucked tight, or the night's quiet wrapping you up. If this hits right, give a wink to the stars over the pasture and tell me where you're listening. Is it midnight, the world hushed, or morning with coffee brewing? You don't court by candlelight. You do it while threshing wheat or mending nets side by side. You notice her because she works hard, doesn't grumble, and still has most of her teeth a solid checklist in 1350. You show interest with practical gifts, a bundle of kindling, a fat turnip, or if you're feeling bold, a spoon you carved while your pig stared you down. It's not flashy, but it says I'm here and I'm useful. Conversations happen over mundane tasks, chatting about rain while herding sheep, or joking about old Tom's latest tumble into the well. It's not Shakespeare, but there's a sweetness in it. Like finding a ripe berry in the brambles, you learn each other's quirks, how she hums off key, how you sprint when a goat bolts. If you both click and the families nod, marriage comes quick, a shared hut, a borrowed blanket and a goat to call your own. It's not glamorous, but it's real, forged in sweat and quiet laughs. You build a life, not a fairy tale, and somehow that's enough. As you drift through this story, feel the ache of a day's labour, the flicker of a hearth. Next, we'll dive into marriage as a hard-bargained contract. Keep the embers warm, and let's keep going. You're standing in a medieval village square, the air thick with the scent of damp wool and roasting chestnuts, the murmur of a crowd blending with the drone of a priest's Latin chants. You found someone, maybe the cooper's son, with his steady hands and quiet laugh. But this isn't the moment for starry-eyed vows. In the Middle Ages, marriage isn't a dreamy union of souls. It's a contract hammered out with the romance of a livestock auction. Your heart might flutter, but the real talk is about dowries, land rights, and who gets the cow if things go south. Welcome to the gritty business of tying the knot, where love's a side dish and survival's the main course. Get cosy. Maybe let the soft creak of a chair or the hum of a fan pull you into this world. If you're feeling it, give a nod to the village elders haggling nearby and let me know where you're at midnight with the moon high or afternoon with the sun warming your back. Marriage here is a deal, plain and simple. If you're a peasant, it's a modest affair. You gather a few witnesses, mumble through the priest's blessings, and hope you don't trip over the Latin. Your family's already counted the dowry, maybe a sack of grain or a scrawny pig, and made sure the other side's not shortchanging you. It's not about passion. It's about merging resources, ensuring there's enough firewood and barley to last the winter. For nobles, it's a full-blown spectacle. You're paraded in silk surrounded by scribes and lords who've spent weeks negotiating like they're carving up a kingdom. Your bride's dowry land coin, maybe a flock of geese, bolsters your estate, while your title props up her family's status. You might not even know her name until the priest calls it out. Love. That's optional something you might stumble into years later between feasts and squabbles. The church seals it all, declaring your union a holy sacrament as binding as the stone walls around you. Yet there's a flicker of the hope maybe you catch her eye during the vows, and it feels like a promise, not just a signature. Humans are like that, finding warmth in the coldest bargains. As you sink into this tale, taste the ink on the parchment, hear the clink of coins. Next we'll dive into the scandalous chaos of noble elopements. Keep the hearth lit and let's press on. You're pacing the shadowed halls of a medieval castle, the air heavy with the scent of wax candles and old stone, your heart pounding for a squire who smells of horses and rebellion. Forget the betrothal your parents arranged to some dour lord with a fat estate. You want love raw and reckless, not another line in your family's ledger. In the Middle Ages, noble elopements were the equivalent of setting your lineage on fire and dancing in the ashes. Running off to marry for passion isn't just defiance, it's political sabotage, a scandal that could spark feuds or topple alliances. Welcome to the high-stakes gamble of noble romance where love's a sword and you're swinging it blind. Settle in maybe with a blanket pulled tight, or the night's quiet wrapping you up. If this tale's got you hooked, tip your cap to the moonlit towers outside and tell me where you're listening late night with owls hooting, or daytime with the world bustling. You're a noble, promised to someone whose lands match your father's ambitions, but you're sneaking whispers with a penniless squire in the stables. You plot in secret, maybe bribing a monk to marry you in a musty chapel, with only a nervous goat as witness. You slip away under cover of night, your heart racing like a warhorse. Back home, it's chaos, your father's threatening to siege a garden, your mother's weeping into her embroidery, and the gossip's juicier than a harvest feast. The church frowns, the court buzzes, and your squire's kneecaps are on borrowed time. Best case you keep your love and dodge excommunication. Worst case you're the talk of every tavern from here to Normandy. Yet some couples pulled it off. If the marriage stuck too messy to annal, families might grumble but let it slide. A few became legends, their reckless vows spun into songs by bards with a flair for drama. In a world of contracts and crowns, eloping was a shout into the void, proof that love could outwit duty, even if just for a night. As you drift through this story, feel the creak of the escape ladder, the chill of moonlit stone. Next we'll unravel the tangled economics of dowries and bride prices. Keep your courage burning and let's charge on. You're in the thick of a medieval wedding feast, the air heavy with the aroma of spiced mead, and crackling hearth fires, the clatter of wooden plates mingling with raucous laughter. You're smitten maybe with the vintner's daughter, whose quick wit outshines the candles, but love's not the star of this show. In the Middle Ages, marriage comes with a receipt, whether it's a dowry from the bride's family or a bride price paid by the groom. These aren't just gifts. They're the currency of status, survival and strategy, traded like you're a particularly valuable sack of oats. Welcome to the world of dowries and bride prices, where romance takes a back seat to a well-balanced ledger. Get snug, maybe let the glow of a lamp or the whisper of night air draw you in. If you're hooked, give a mental toast to the feast's chaos, and tell me where you're at midnight with the world asleep or noon with life humming. If you're the bride, your family's piling up the dowry, a chest of linens, a cow or two, maybe a plot of land if they're feeling flush. It's your ticket into the marriage handed to your groom to prove you're worth the deal. A hefty dowry screams prestige, but a skimpy one. That's village gossip for weeks, hinting you're more trouble than treasure. You don't keep it, though it's your husband's to manage, and good luck getting it back if he bolts to a monastery mid-crisis. Flip the script and you're the groom in a place where bride prices rule. You're forking over a horse, a cloak, or a few pigs to her family saying, "I'm serious now, hand over your daughter." It's not just payment, it's compensation for losing her labour. Because who's milking the goats now? These exchanges aren't cold cash grabs. They're public flexes showing everyone your family's got clout. But there's a human thread here. You catch her eye as the priest drones on, and the weight of coins feels lighter for a moment. In a world obsessed with wealth, that glance is your rebellion. As you sink into this tale, taste the mead, feel the rough table under your fingers. Next, we'll slip into the scandalous whispers of monastic love. Keep the fire crackling, and let's dive deeper. You're sitting at a rough-hewn table in a medieval hut, the air thick with the scent of stew and smoky peat, the flicker of a hearth casting shadows on your spouse's face. You married for land or a decent goat, but a few years in the shine's worn off. Maybe they snore like a cartwheel on cobblestone, or they've gambled away your best hen. In the Middle Ages, marriage was a sacred knot, but that doesn't mean it was a happy one. With divorce off the table and annulments as rare as a clean tunic, you're stuck. Welcome to the world of marital disappointment, where love sours and sneaky affairs bloom like weeds in a neglected field. Get comfy, maybe tuck in with a blanket, or let the night's hush pull you deeper. If you're into this, give a wink to the hearth's embers and tell me where you're at late night with the world asleep or midday with life stirring. You can't just walk away. The church calls marriage unbreakable, sealed by God and gossip. Annulments need big reasons, like proving your cousins or the marriage never happened in the bedroom, which means swearing it in front of a smirking scribe. Nobles have it worse. Your union's a political stitch, and unravelling it could spark a feud or a war. So you endure sleeping in separate straw beds, sighing over supper, your passive-aggressive quips sharper than a scythe. But humans don't just stew, they stray. Affairs happen quiet as a cat in the barn. Nobles sneak lovers into tapestried chambers. Peasants find helpful neighbours who linger too long. The church thunders against it, but that just makes you better at hiding stolen glances at the harvest feast, a brush of hands in the hayloft. If you're a woman, it's rougher. Society demands you stay loyal, even if your husband's a brute or vanished to find himself on a pilgrimage. Still, some couples forge a truce bonded by shared winters and kids who need feeding. In this world of duty, a secret spark feels like defiance proof you're more than a contract. As you drift through this tale, taste the bitter stew, feel the chill of a loveless night. Next, we'll explore the strange freedom of widowhood. Keep the fire low and let's move on. You're standing in a medieval marketplace, the air buzzing with the clink of coins and the earthy scent of fresh mud and herbs. Your spouse is gone, maybe felled by plague, a rogue ox, or a goose-related mishap, and suddenly you're a widow or widower navigating a world that's equal parts loss and possibility. In the Middle Ages, widowhood isn't just grief. It's a rare crack in the armour of society, especially for women offering a taste of freedom you never had before. You're not just mourning, you're managing land-dodging suitors, and maybe even eyeing a second chance at love. Welcome to the bittersweet liberty of starting over, where the dating pool reopens with a splash. Settle in, maybe with a soft breeze or the quiet of night wrapping you up. If this story's got you, give a nod to the market's bustle, and let me know where you're listening midnight with stars out, or morning with the world waking. If you're a woman, widowhood's a game changer. You're running the household now, bargaining at the mill, maybe even speaking up without being shushed. With a bit of land and a few teeth left, your prize suitors swarm like flies to meet some sweet others just hungry for your cows. You can remarry fast. Morning's short when survival's on the line. Pick right and you might find a partner, not just a landlord. Pick wrong and you're back to dodging snores and bad bets. Men don't get off easy either. You're a widower with a gaggle of kids and a leaky hut who's cooking the pottage now. Society nudges you to remarry, quick-eyeing the baker's widow with her suspiciously tasty pies. Second marriages can be softer, wiser. You're not chasing alliances, just someone to share the load and maybe a laugh. The church grumbles if you rush it and families bicker over dowries, but life's too short for lonely winters. There's a quiet romance here built on scars and survival, not sonnets. You light the hearth, pour the ale and try again, because humans keep hoping no matter the odds. As you sink into this tale, hear the market's hum, feel the weight of a new ring. Next, we'll wrap up with the cosmic quirks of medieval love. Keep your heart open and let's step forward. You're wandering a medieval village at dusk, the air thick with the scent of damp straw, and flickering torchlight your heart caught on. Someone, maybe the cooper's daughter, with her sly smile and steady hands. But before you let that spark flare, you've got to ask, does the universe approve? In the Middle Ages, love isn't just about feelings, it's a cosmic puzzle, tangled in stars, omens and your grandmother's obsession with stray foxes. Every step toward romance is watched by the heavens, the saints, and that weird woman in the woods who's definitely not a witch, probably. Welcome to the wild world of superstitions and cosmic love, where your heart's a rebel, but the stars hold the reins. Get cozy, maybe let the night's hush or a soft hum pull you into this tale. If you're feeling it, give a nod to the flickering sky above and tell me where you're at midnight with the world asleep, or afternoon with the sun high. Before you even think of stealing a kiss, you'd better check the stars. Is Venus in retrograde? Was your crush born under a cursed moon? The local monk astrologer's got a chart that says your signs might clash, and that's a deal breaker. Then there's the church frowning on cousins first, second or fourth unless you've got coin for a loophole. Social status is a hurdle too. A noble loving a peasant is either a miracle or a sin destined for a tragic ballad. Omens are everywhere. A raven swoops by while you're daydreaming of her bad news. Drop bread at dinner while sneaking a glance, your love's doomed. Someone might slip a charm under your doorstep to ward off bad matches, or curse your chances, it's a toss-up. Even birthmarks could mark you as soulmates or sworn enemies. Yet despite the rules you push back, you lock eyes across the market and it feels like defying the heavens. Love in this world is clumsy, brave, and gloriously disobedient, a spark that laughs at the stars. As you drift through this story, taste the smoke of the village fire, hear the rustle of leaves whispering omens. That wraps up medieval romance. Next, we'll ride into the windswept world of Tamiris and the Massage Tay. Keep your heart bold and let's charge on. You're galloping across the windswept steppes of Central Asia, the air sharp with the scent of horse sweat and wild grass, the horizon stretching endless under a sky that feels alive. You're among the Massage Tay, a nomadic tribe, where power isn't carved in stone but carried in the saddle. At their heart is Tamiris, a queen who rules not from a gilded throne, but with the grit of a warrior and the will of a storm. She's no pampered royal, her court is the open plain, her army, the wind her crown, the trust of her people. Welcome to her world where survival demands defiance, and one woman's courage could topple an empire. Settle in maybe with the night's quiet or a soft breeze pulling you closer. If this tale's got you, give a salute to the steppes' endless stars and let me know where you're listening late with the world hushed or midday with life buzzing. Tamiris stands tall among her tattooed warriors, her presence as sharp as the arrows they fire from horseback. Her people live hard, harsh winters, long migrations, enemies on every side, but she's tougher, a leader forged by necessity, not birthright. No husband overshadows her. No brother steers her hand. She's a lawgiver, a rider, a force, and her story's about to crash headlong into a conqueror who underestimates her. The Achaemenid Persian Empire led by Cyrus the Great looms like a shadow. He's toppled cities, swallowed kingdoms, and now his eyes turn east to the Massage Tay's lands. But Tamiris isn't just a queen, she's a storm in human form ready to defend not just her territory but her way of life. The clash is coming, and it's not about gold or glory, it's about a people who ride free and a queen who won't bend. Her story passed down through whispers and campfires might be half legend, but it's all fire. As you sink into this tale, feel the thud of hooves, the bite of the wind. Next, we'll see how Cyrus tries to tame her with a marriage proposal, and fails spectacularly. Keep your eyes on the horizon, and let's ride on. You're racing across the Central Asian steppes, the air sharp with the tang of dust and the distant rumble of hooves, your heart pounding in rhythm with the Massage Tay's fierce spirit. Tamiris, their queen, stands unyielding, her gaze as piercing as the arrows her warriors loose. Enter Cyrus the Great, the Persian conqueror, who's toppled Babylon and Lydia like they were tavern bets. He's got his sights on the Massage Tay, but instead of charging in with swords, he tries a smooth attack, a marriage proposal to Tamiris herself. Spoiler, it's about as romantic as offering a wolf a leash. Welcome to the clash of empires and egos, where a queen's defiance outshines a king's ambition. Get settled, maybe let the night's chill or a low hum draw you into this saga. If you're hooked, give a nod to the steppes' endless sky, and tell me where you're at. 12:34 p.m. with the day alive or late with stars blazing. Cyrus thinks he's clever, sending envoys with promises of alliance through marriage. To him, it's a tidy deal. Wed Tamiris, fold her lands into his empire and parade her as a trophy queen. But Tamiris sees right through the silk-wrapped trap. This isn't love or partnership, it's control, a bid to tame her people's wild freedom. She rejects him with the kind of steel that makes men rethink their life choices, her words sharp enough to cut through his imperial swagger. Cyrus doesn't take no lightly. He's used to cities crumbling at his name, not a nomad queen spitting in his face figuratively, but you get the vibe. Spurned, he shifts gears, crossing the Araxes River to stake a foothold in her territory. Tamiris, though, isn't pacing a palace in panic. She's rallying her chiefs, sharpening her strategy and preparing for war. Her refusal isn't just pride, it's a stand for her people's way of life, mobile, untamed, and fiercely their own. As you sink into this tale, feel the tension of a bowstring, the heat of a council fire. Next, we'll dive into the nomadic warfare that makes tribes like hers unstoppable. Keep your spirit free and let's gallop on. You're thundering through the vast steppes, the air alive with the scent of crushed grass and the sharp twang of bowstrings, your pulse sinking with the Massagetae's relentless charge. Beyond them, the Mongols and other nomads weave a legacy of warfare that's less about castles and more about speed deception and sheer nerve. These aren't armies bogged down by supply trains. They're lightning on hooves, striking fast and vanishing like smoke. In the Middle Ages and before nomadic warfare turned empires into nervous wrecks, and mobility was their secret weapon. Welcome to a world where the wind's your ally, and a horse is worth more than a throne. Ease in maybe with a breeze whispering, or the quiet of noon grounding you. If this grips you, salute the horizon's endless roll, and let me know where you're tuned in, 12:34 p.m. with the sun high, or night, with the world hushed, nomads like the Mongols' weaponized movement. Their horse archers could fire mid-gallop, nailing targets with eerie precision. They'd fake retreats, luring cocky enemies into traps, then wheel around and shred them. Under Genghis Khan, the Mongols turned this into an art, travelling 100 miles a day, outpacing any army dumb enough to chase them. No heavy armour, no baggage, just lean, mean riders who lived off their herds and the land. It wasn't just speed, it was smarts. Scouts and spies fed them intel sharper than their blades. Signal flags and fake campfires messed with enemies' heads. When they hit cities, they adapted fast-snagging Chinese siege engineers or Persian catapult crews to crack walls. But here's the twist: they didn't just destroy. The Mongols guarded the Silk Road linking east and west, letting trade and ideas flow under their iron grip. Back with the Massagetae Tamirus used this same mobility, her warriors darting like wolves to harry Cyrus's plodding legions. Nomads didn't need fortresses. Their strength was in never standing still. As you ride through this story, feel the jolt of a galloping horse, the sting of wind. Next, we'll explore how nomads balance trade and raids to keep empires on edge. Keep your eyes sharp and let's surge forward. You're trekking across the sun-scorched steppes, the air heavy with dust and the faint musk of camel caravans, your eyes squinting against the glare of a trade route stretching to the horizon. You're with nomads, Massagetae, Bedouins, Mongols, whose lives blur the line between merchant and marauder. One day they're guiding spice-laden camels for a tidy profit. The next, they're raiding a border town because someone skimped on the deal. In the Middle Ages, nomads were the pulse of trade-linking empires along the Silk Road, but cross them and you'd feel their hooves before you saw them. Welcome to the high-stakes dance of trade and raid, where loyalty's negotiable and respect's earned in blood or gold. Settle in maybe with the noon sun warming your shoulders, or a night's quiet wrapping you tight like now at 12:36 p.m. If this tale's got you, tip your hat to the caravan's swaying load and tell me where you're at, daylight buzzing or stars awake. Nomads couldn't grow grain or forge pots, so they traded livestock furs or rare falcons for tools and silks. Their armed convoys were no mere merchants. They were ready to defend or attack depending on the vibe. The Bedouins escorted incense caravans across Arabia, but if the pay was short, those camels took a detour. The Mongols tried trading with the Khwarezmian Empire until their merchants were executed and cities burned in reply. To nomads, trade was personal, a test of honour. Empires called it treachery. Nomads called it survival. Border towns became hybrid zones, half market, half fortress, where governors bribed chiefs and tribes swapped horses and secrets. A marriage might seal a shaky peace, but the next season could bring a raid. This wasn't chaos, it was strategy. Nomads didn't need walls to wield power, they shaped empires by staying fluid, keeping cities glancing nervously at the horizon. You feel the weight of a trade deal, the tension of a drawn bow. As you ride through this story, taste the dust of the trail, hear the jingle of coins. Next we'll dive into the oral traditions that kept nomadic history alive. Keep your wits sharp, and let's press on. You're gathered around a crackling campfire on the steppes, the air thick with the scent of burning wood and roasted mutton, the stars above sharp as a nomad's memory. There are no scrolls, no libraries, just the voices of elders weaving stories that carry a tribe's soul. For nomads like the Massagetae Mongols or Bedouins, oral tradition isn't just storytelling. It's their history, lore and identity passed down through songs and proverbs as vital as water. In a world without ink, memory is power, and a well-told tale can outlast stone. Welcome to the living archive of nomadic history, where every word's a spark keeping the past alive. Get cozy maybe with the midday hum of 12:36 p.m. or the night's deep calm pulling you in. If you're gripped, give a nod to the fire's glow and let me know where you're tuned in, daylight or darkness. Elders aren't just old. They're walking libraries reciting lineages back a dozen generations' battles that shape the tribe and proverbs that guide a chief's hand. Among the Bedouins' poets, shires wield words like swords, shaming enemies, or halting wars with a single verse. Their epics, memorized flawlessly, are recited under desert skies, each line a thread tying past to present. The Mongols' secret history, first sung not written, spills Genghis Khan's rise with raw truths of loyalty and revenge. Even the Scythians, with no script, etched their migrations and alliances into oral tales later caught by Greek scribes like Herodotus. These stories aren't static, they bend, adapt live. A misremembered line might shift a tale, but that's the strength, flexibility, humanity. Nomads carried their history in breath, not stone, letting it survive defeats or migrations. As you sink into this tale, hear the cadence of a poet's voice, feel the warmth of the fire. Next, we'll explore the fierce roles of women in nomadic life. Keep the embers glowing and let's carry on. You're riding across the boundless steppes, the air sharp with the scent of horsehide, and wild thyme, the wind carrying the fierce cries of warriors, men and women alike. Among nomads like the Massagetè, Mongols and Scythians, women aren't confined to tents or veiled in silence. They're riders, archers, shamans and chiefs, their hands as quick with a bow as with a cradle. In a life where every soul must fight, hunt or lead to survive, gender bends to necessity and power flows to those who seize it. Welcome to the untamed world of nomadic women where strength is a birthright and the steppe knows no limits. Get settled maybe with the midday pulse of 12:37 p.m. or the night's quiet drawing you close. If this saga's got you, salute the horizon's fierce glow and tell me where you're at. Daylight humming or stars awake, Scythian graves reveal women buried with swords, their bones scarred from battles fought, not just mourned. These weren't tokens. They were warriors riding into legend and maybe inspiring Greek tales of Amazons. In Mongol camps, women ruled while men raided Genghis Khan's daughters, and wives led armies, brokered peace and shaped empires. Saga Khani Beki, a kingmaker, raised emperors with a strategist's mind sharper than any blade. Bedouin women, though less public, held sway through poetry and honour. Their tents were domains of resource and wisdom, raising warriors and guarding tribal codes. Some owned camels, wealth on hooves, and could divorce or claim property, a freedom rare in city walls. Shamans in Turkic tribes healed and spoke to spirits, their voices as vital as any chief's. Mobility demanded this equality. A fallen warrior meant a woman stepped up, no questions asked. You feel the weight of a quiver, the rhythm of a galloping mare. As you weave through this tale, hear the clash of steel, taste the dust of the charge. Next, we'll explore the spiritual heartbeat of nomadic life. Keep your spirit wild and let's surge on. You're camped under a vast steppe sky, the air rich with the scent of smouldering sage and the soft rustle of a felt tent flapping in the breeze. For nomads, Massagetè Mongols. Bedouin spirituality isn't locked in temples or scribbled in books. It's alive in the wind's howl, the river's murmur, the fire's crackle. Their gods ride with them, woven into the land and the journey itself. Every mountain's a guardian, every flame sacred, and life's a constant conversation with the unseen. Welcome to nomadic animism, where faith flows like the rivers they cross, and the sky's the only roof they need. Sink in maybe with the noon buzz of 12:37 p.m, or the night's deep calm holding you tight. If you're hooked, nod to the stars' endless dance, and tell me where you're tuned in, daylight alive or darkness deep. The Scythians, as Herodotus whispered, worshipped a hearth goddess Tabiti and a sky god. Papaios with rituals raw as the steppe horse. Sacrifices, cannabis, smoke oaths sworn under open skies. No priests in fancy robes, just shamans and warriors calling to the heavens. Bedouins pre-Islam revered jinn in desert rocks, and winds their poets channeling fates as real as the sand. Hospitality wasn't just kind, it was wholly a pact with the unseen. Mongols bowed to Tengri, the eternal blue sky, a god who didn't need temples, just your respect. Genghis claimed his rule from Tengri's will, while shamans read earth spirits and ancestral ghosts their fires, the heart of every tent. This faith was fluid, nomads met Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, and wove their ideas into their own like threads in a saddle blanket. A Mongol Khan might pray to all gods at once, just in case. You hear the shaman's drum, feel the sacred fire's warmth. As you drift through this story, taste the sage's bite, see the sky's endless blue. Next, we'll trace how nomads bridged cultures across continents. Keep your soul open, and let's move forward. You're swaying atop a camel on the Silk Road, the air thick with the scent of spices and leather, the horizon shimmering with the promise of distant cities. Nomads, Massagetay Mongols. Bedouins aren't just wanderers. They're the thread stitching east to west, carrying stories, songs and secrets across continents. Their hoofprints shaped trade routes. Their fires warmed ideas that changed the world. In the Middle Ages, they were cultural bridges ferrying music recipes and faiths between empires too stubborn to meet halfway. Welcome to the nomad's legacy, where movement sparked connection, and history rode on their backs. Get cozy maybe with the midday hum of 12:39 p.m, or the night's quiet pulling you in. If this tale's got you, salute the caravan's dust trail and tell me where you're at, daylight buzzing or stars awake. The Silk Road wasn't just silk, it was a nomad highway. Mongols guarded its paths, letting Chinese paper reach Persian scribes and Arab coffee warm European hands. They carried Buddhist scrolls to shamans' Islamic verses to Khans blending faiths like spices in a stew. Scythians swapped tales with Greeks, their oral epics echoing in Homer's lines. Bedouins wove Arab poetry into Islam's early heart, their honour codes shaping laws that outlasted dunes. This wasn't just trade, it was alchemy. Nomads didn't build cities, but they linked them, carrying Chinese printing to Persia, Turkish rhythms to Ottoman courts. Their legacy lives in horsemanship, in campfire stories, in the resilience of tribes who outlasted empires. They showed the world that walls don't make power, movement does. You feel the creak of a saddle, the weight of a trader's pack. As you weave through this story, taste the tang of foreign spices, hear the strum of a distant lute. Next, we'll see how nomads shook empires to their core. Keep your eyes on the road and let's ride on. You're galloping across a windswept plain, the air sharp with the scent of horse sweat and smouldering campfires, the ground trembling under a nomad horde's charge. From the Scythians to the Mongols, Turks to Huns, these tribes didn't just roam, they rattled empires, cracking the myth that cities ruled supreme. In the Middle Ages and before nomads were chaos on hooves, toppling thrones and reshaping borders with speed and nerve. Their influence wasn't in palaces, but in the fear they struck and the worlds they rewired. Welcome to the nomad's grip on empires where mobility outsmarted stone. Sink in maybe with the noon pulse of 12:39 p.m, or the night's deep hush grounding you. If you're hooked, nod to the steppes' wild expanse and tell me where you're tuned in. Day buzzing or stars sharp. The Mongols under Genghis Khan shattered tribal feuds to build an empire from China to Europe, their horse archers outrunning any army. They didn't just conquer, they rewrote rules forcing cities to pay tribute or burn. Scythians stung Persian kings, their hit-and-run raids leaving armies chasing ghosts. Turks laid the seeds for the Ottoman Empire, their nomadic roots fueling a dynasty that straddled continents. Empires feared them for good reason. Nomads exposed the slowness of walls, the fragility of wealth. They didn't need to hold land, just hit it hard and vanish. Yet they also shaped what they struck. Mongols revived the Silk Road, linking markets and mines. Bedouin codes blared into Islamic law Turkish riders into imperial armies. Their victories proved power didn't need roots, only momentum. You hear the thunder of hooves, taste the dust of a raid. As you surge through this tale, feel the snap of a bowstring, see the flicker of an empire's fear. Next, we'll reflect on the enduring spirit of nomads in our world. Keep your heart fierce, and let's charge forward. You're swaying on a horse under a boundless steppe sky, the air sharp with the scent of dry grass and fading campfires, the horizon whispering of journeys without end. Nomads, Scythians, Mongols, Bedouins didn't leave pyramids or marble halls, but their spirit gallops through history, carried in stories, songs, and the stubborn pulse of freedom. They shaped trade routes, shook empires, and wove their ways into the world's bones, proving power doesn't need walls, just wind and will. Today, their descendants ride on fewer but fierce holding traditions older than nations. Welcome to the enduring nomadic spirit where the past lives in every hoofbeat. Get comfy maybe with the afternoon light of 2:01 p.m, or the night's quiet wrapping you tight. If this saga's got you, nod to the stars that guided their paths and tell me where you're at here in the bright day, or under a moon's glow, nomads like the Mongols connected China to Europe, their Silk Road protection, letting spices ideas, and even the Black Death flow. Scythian tales seeded Greek myths. Bedouin poetry shaped Islamic honour codes. Their influence lingers in horsemanship oral storytelling and the fierce independence of tribes who outlasted empires. You see it in modern nomads battling borders and climates still offering hospitality to strangers still singing their ancestors' truths. Their legacy is a warning: no empire's permanent, no wall unbreachable. Nomads proved mobility trumps monuments, that stories outlive stone. Their values, kinship, resilience, reverence for the land, echo across deserts and steppes, reminding you that history moves where people dare to roam. You feel the creak of a saddle, the rhythm of a herd's march. As you drift through this tale, taste the dust of a long road, hear the echo of a shaman's chant. This wraps the nomad story. Next, we'll leap to the dream of a railroad stitching America together. Keep your spirit untamed, and let's roll on. You're standing on a bustling New York dock in the 1860s, the air thick with the tang of salt and coal smoke, the shouts of merchants blending with the creak of wagon wheels. America's split east hums with factories, west glitters with gold fields, but between them lies a wild expanse of desert mountains and dreams. The idea of a transcontinental railroad, a steel ribbon tying coast to coast, feels like chasing the horizon. Yet visionaries see it aligned to unite a fractured nation, speed news-move armies and tame the frontier. Welcome to the birth of a railroad that changed America, built on ambition and paid for in sweat. Settle in maybe with the afternoon buzz of 2:01 p.m. or a quiet evening pulling you close. If you're hooked, tip your hat to the locomotives puffing in the distance and tell me where you're at, daylight alive or stars waking. In 1862, while the Civil War tears the country apart, Abraham Lincoln signs the Pacific Railway Act. Two companies, Union Pacific from Omaha, Central Pacific from Sacramento, are tasked to race toward each other, meeting in the middle. The government dangles massive land grants and loans, 640 acres per mile of track plus cash to keep the wheels turning. It's a gamble, but the prize is huge land money and a place in history. This isn't just engineering, it's a battle against nature and time. The Union Pacific faces endless plains and indigenous resistance. The Central Pacific grapples with Sierra Nevada granite. Workers, immigrants, veterans, dreamers will blast through Rockbridge rivers and brave winters their names rarely recorded. For native tribes, the rails aren't progress. They're a scar across sacred lands. You hear the clang of hammers, feel the weight of a nation's hope. As you sink into this tale, taste the dust of the frontier, see the gleam of steel. Next, we'll dive into the Central Pacific's brutal fight with the mountains. Keep your eyes on the tracks and let's charge forward. You're perched on a jagged Sierra Nevada cliff in 1865, the air biting with the scent of pine and black powder, the roar of avalanches echoing below. The Central Pacific Railroad's carving its way east from Sacramento, but these mountains' granite giants cloaked in snow laugh at ambition. Every mile of track feels like a fistfight with nature, and the men swinging picks are mostly Chinese immigrants. Their hands cracked their lives cheap to the bosses. They're the backbone of this dream, blasting tunnels and dangling off cliffs to lay steel, yet their names rarely make the ledgers. Welcome to the Central Pacific's brutal battle where progress is paid in blood and grit. Get settled maybe with the afternoon hum of 2:03 p.m, or the night's chill wrapping you tight. If this grips you, nod to the snow-dusted peaks, and tell me where you're at daylight sharp or stars out. Work started in 1863, but the Sierras are a beast. No dynamite yet, just hand drills and black powder to crack rock. Chinese labourers, over 10,000 strong, make up 80% of the crew by 65. Paid less than white workers housed in rickety camps, they face racism and rock slides daily. Winter buries them in 40-foot drifts, forcing them to live in snow tunnels, chimneys poking up like desperate breaths. Dozens die, blown apart, crushed or frozen, yet the line creeps forward. These men are relentless. Suspended in baskets, they chip away at cliffs inch by inch. Tunnel number 6 takes 2 years, a grim slog through solid stone. Wooden trestles soar over ravines built by hands that never see praise. By 1867, the Central Pacific breaks through to the Nevada desert flat, deadly, but no match for the Sierras. You feel the sting of frost, the jolt of an explosion. As you weave through this tale, taste the smoke of campfires, hear the clink of hammers. Next, we'll ride with the Union Pacific across the plains where a different fight brews. Keep your nerves steady, and let's push on. You're trudging across the Great Plains in 1860.